We have an ethics code that's upwards of 30 pages. There's so much to say about it, and there are so many voices that need to be heard.
So we've talked a few times on this channel before about how behavior analysis is this progressive science. Things are continually moving forward. But the problem is that our field relies solely on one textbook, usually one textbook, when it comes to ethics and behavior analysis. There's a slew of them that are out there, 5, 6, 7 different books that are pinnacles in our science, but there's a new one on the market that I wanted to talk about today. So I've got the authors here. They're going to describe why they wrote the book, where you can find more. I do not make money off of these books. It's just Global Autism Project said, hey, come out, check out our event. We have a really cool book for you here.
I guess in the early stages of writing this textbook, when I was talking with Anne about it, she was mentioning how hard it is for the everyday behavior analyst to talk about ethical issues, because a lot of them are then victimized and said, well, if you're having this problem, then you're unethical. This is an opportunity for us to talk about ethics. We need to have ethical conversations if we're going to advance as a field. We're not going to advance as a field if we just assume that ethics is a black and white issue, if we assume that ethics is not evolving. Practice changes, insurance is relatively new, insurance is different in every state. How we apply the ethical code is going to be different here domestically, but especially internationally.
We have an ethics code that's upwards of 30 pages. There's so much to say about it, and there are so many voices that need to be heard. And so that was really a big part of it. I really felt like that was a big thing for me personally, is like getting as many voices out there. And we have a guest contributor for every chapter, and there's some people that you don't hear about or hear from a lot. And some of them I did some interviews, and I learned so much doing the interviews.
For me, it was to create a forum, to create a discussion, to talk about ethics, to have an opportunity to hear from multiple people, explain their take on the ethical code. We need to have these conversations if we're going to evolve as a science, and if we're not challenging what we see on the day-to-day, then we're not moving forward as a science. I've had the privilege of working with the Global Autism Project and traveling the world and seeing a lot of centers all across the world. And there's a lot of challenges that we need to address if we're actually going to make applied behavior analysis an international science that can be applied and practiced internationally. There are anecdotes of challenges that are experienced by practitioners internationally. There's anecdotes about practitioners trying to apply the ethical code here in North America. It's not as straightforward, it's not a black and white thing. We need to understand that there are variables that we face as clinicians, whether you are a seasoned BCBA or you're new to the field. And you need to have an opportunity to discuss and to brainstorm and to talk about it. Otherwise, we're not going to help behavior analysis grow and address the needs that it needs to address in order to support our clients.
I remember when I first started studying behavior analysis, and I think a lot of students kind of have this sort of mentality. I hope I'm not the only one who felt this way. But I remember my first course in behavior analysis, I was like, great, so on what page am I gonna know the answer to everything? And I remember starting my mentorship, which is what they called it at the time when I got my BCBA, which was with Bobby Newman, and he said, well, what do you hope to get out of this? And I said, I wanna know all the answers. I don't wanna be confused anymore. And he was like, well, I can't do that for you. And of course he was right. I still don't know all the answers. But I feel like, a lot of my experience has taught me to ask better questions. And I think that's really the focus of the book. Also, is teaching people we can't give, if we had all of the answers, then, why would we be asking other people for interviews? But we're trying to encourage people to ask questions, because I feel like that's when I'm really engaging in ethical behavior, when I'm self-managing, when I'm saying like, okay, is this, am I on the right track here? Is this for me or for them?
These things need to be talked about. If they're not talked about, then we're not addressing the needs of our clients, we're not addressing the needs of ourselves, of our supervisees, we're not doing what we need to do, we're not doing our due diligence in behavior analysis.
I read a chapter quickly yesterday. I have not read the whole thing. I've loved what I saw so far, and I really think it's cool how they brought in these different perspectives. We were talking a little bit last night how it's not about the two authors, it's not about the topic per se, it's about everybody in the field communicating, and you can see that through a lot of the people that they called on for interviews that were included as guest contributors for each of these chapters. So shout out to all of you. Thank you so much for getting us another piece of information that's out there, that's something that's a little bit more updated, a little bit more with the times, and that's your Daily BA. Oh yeah, let me know what you think about it in the comments if you read it. Or we'll just keep the discussion going on ethics in general. See ya.